Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 23rd of November, comes to you from London. And it's Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to all my friends and colleagues in the US. And of course, that means that markets will be fairly quiet today and tomorrow. Closed in the US today, and not much trading with a bridge day in the middle tomorrow. So that's quite key. I haven't been around for a few days myself. I've been doing my Yacht Master. I'm happy to say I passed. It was quite a grueling exam for a few days. So I'm back in the seat and just looking at markets. And we'll start with the targets. And first of all, we'll look at currencies. Then we'll look at stock indices and commodities, and last of all, the energy mix. So, and we'll look at some of the tech stocks. And Nvidia out with strong results last night. So the dollar index, the key thing here is we've had these downside targets. These were given throughout November. This is on the 60-minute chart. This is short term, remember. We're waiting to see if we make new lows and activate another downside target. If that happens, that really increases the likelihood of the dollar index going back to 100. So we are just testing the cloud at the moment, but that just is giving us signs of a weaker dollar, and we're seeing that playing through on the daily chart, below the cloud on the price, not quite through yet on the lagging line. If you want to understand the cloud charts, remember my book is on Amazon. It's on Kindle as well. The cloud charts are just fantastic for really understanding the trends. So I use the clouds for my trend definition and the targets for where the price is going. So we'll just go through the currencies. So we know that weaker dollar, that obviously means stronger euro, and there's the upside target for the euro, some 3.5% higher. The Japanese yen, quite interesting here. If we look at that, we see here we've got this upside target. We're back below that 150 level. We had a downside target that was given last week, met this week. So it just shows the targets when they are given. You don't get them all the time, but when they're given, that really is quite key. Down to that downside target. Then off the bottom, we've got a new upside target. It's waiting. We're back below the activation level. That's what these little horizontal lines are. We make new highs, then 152.89, 152.90. That's really what we're seeing as a potential. Sterling, we had, of course, the UK budget out yesterday. And sterling is actually looking a little bit stronger, having come back on that weaker dollar. And again, if we make that new high above 125.50, that really does push us towards these targets of 127, 131. So that's really quite key there. Bitcoin, of course, has been an interesting one of late. And we have got these longer term targets here, targets to 45,000, 50,000, and a new one that was activated to 61,000. But on the short term target at the chart at the moment, it's this 38,000, but we do have a downside target. So it is a little bit of a mixed picture on Bitcoin. You'll notice how these previous targets were met, then a downside one given. We are messing with the cloud. We are stuck in a range. So that's really what we're looking at there. So we're just waiting for new highs really to start thinking about these targets again. Looking at the markets, we'll start by looking at the Nasdaq. It's been very strong, of course, making new highs. So really strong, having had that breakaway gap there. So looking good there. We had a target given back at 15,500, 16,181 was the target. We're not quite there yet. We've hit 16,119, so about another 50 points to rise. And just watching this orange target, that would only be activated with a new low. So we're bullish above the cloud there on the Nasdaq as well. And if we look at the S&P 500 index, similar picture here. We've activated an upside target, so market's looking pretty strong in the US. This downside target, by the way, this is where we start to see that the target's diverging from the target, and we just know now that that target is not really one to look for. We're really going to the short-term chart there. Looking at the FTSE future, we see here we're up this morning, waiting for these upside targets to activate. A very mixed picture here on the FTSE future, and the same with the DAX in Germany. If we look at the DAX, we're seeing here upside target, but for the moment, this downside target negated, just testing the cloud again on that lagging line. Taking a look at some of the other things, we'll look at the energy mix in a minute. Looking at gold, we're seeing gold actually looking a little bit stronger, nudging that 2,000 level again. So really quite key there. Couldn't quite activate this longer term target for gold. We're really waiting for a break to an all-time high through 2072. So for the moment, We're just waiting for that target to activate. And of course, a new high would activate a target that was given a long time ago. So for the moment, we are looking strong here for 2051, 2035 on gold. Those are the two upside targets at the moment. So really quite key there. Remember, if you're trading these things, you can go to the 1 minute targets for shorter term. Also, just an interesting one is US 10-year yields. We had this really strong uptrend, targets given and met. Little downside target, just moving below the cloud for the first time in 6 months. And interestingly, the lagging line still has work to do. We either fall quite quickly below 4%, and that would put us in a downtrend on the daily chart, medium term, or we take our time. That's the thing about the cloud. It tells you in the future. We take our time. If we're through here, really at that level in sort of end of the year, we'd be starting to break below the cloud as well. On the short-term 60-minute chart, we've got these downside targets. Notice being downside targets all the way here, and so really still below the cloud with further downside to play for. So that's also quite interesting. Looking at Apple, we're not quite making new highs. We have unwound. We've negated one of the downside targets for Apple because we moved below the point where the thrust was given. So that's good news for Apple. Here's the short-term target to 197. We touched 193. So that's really where we're looking for. And of course, a new all-time high would deactivate or negate this downside target. So that would be negated if we move to a new high. Looking at Microsoft looking very bullish, following the track. There's 3 targets there, really quite key. You see those 3 targets. These upside targets all given and met. These are the new ones. We've got a really clear train tracks there. These were the downside targets, and they have since been negated. So that's quite key. Looking at Nvidia, we see here on Nvidia that we have met these upside targets. And what I might want to do on Nvidia is actually adjust the slope. And you can do this if I go to a 60-minute chart of Nvidia, press the T key. You do that on any chart, and we can just adjust the targets and how quickly they're met. And in fact, that's probably looking more like 1-to-1 on the slope, even less. When you see here the targets given, that's quite key as well. So looking at the energy mix now, we go to my list on the energy mix. Brent Crude, this has been a very interesting one. Downside targets here on the daily. So really quite key there that we've got these downside targets, and those have really now looking at 68, 66 there. So that's really quite key for Brent Crude. And short term, we do have a little bit of an upside target, but we're waiting for these targets to resolve themselves. WTI, that is also looking bearish, of course. No big surprises there following crude oil. Looking at emissions, we went out to clients this morning on emissions. We're really testing this floor at 75. A move below 75 is bearish. Again, note the targets. So we see all these downside targets given for emissions. Here's the zoom button there. We see those targets given for emissions. A little upside target that was given and met. That's probably a little bit faster than 2-to-1, so I could adjust the angle. But downside again. So really following the track there has been pretty accurate. And for the moment, if we look at the medium-term chart, for the moment, we're seeing these downside targets. So that's quite key as well. TTF, we're seeing here, we've pulled back, downside targets dominating on the short-term chart. And if we look at NBP, that's also pretty interesting as well to the downside just for the short term. The longer-term picture of the medium-term charts are still looking pretty bullish, but for the moment, we are just short-term bearish. And if we look at German power, this has been one. Remember, I did a survey on German power. Would we fall below 100 before expiry on Cal 24? Most people, it was 50-50 as to whether we would. If I asked the same question, having made new multi-month lows, I suspect more people would say, yes, now we're going to fall below 100. 102.91, and we've got one at 96.25. That downside is really quite clear there. So that's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. Bye for now.